My magnum opus. I shall call you Civil War and Civil Peace. That should get around the copyright. This week, confusion. As a man whose primary purpose is military analyst, I'm ashamed to admit I'm getting mixed signals. In the West, we seem to be winning. Rebels don't appear to be fighting. In the East, we appear to be blunted. But is this a stalemate or defeat? In politics, we see equality advanced and defeated on the very same day. It's a mess. The one highlight, it has many laughs. Hoofs sound through the valleys. General Sheridan rides with two of his divisions. Two goals. One, link up with Hunter and threaten Richmond. This one is impossible. Hunter has moved away from the grouping spot to seek personal glory, but the other goal of distracting Confederate cavalry is a success. The two sides have arrived at Trevelyan Station. General Sheridan has two divisions, General Torbert and General Gregg. Rebels also have two divisions, General Hampton and General Fitz-Lee, with General Hampton the senior. 11th dawn. Hampton is resting quietly until two men enter his tent. Are they here to arrest him or worse, assassinate him? As his eyes adjust to the light, he realizes that they're friends. General Rosser and General Butler, his subordinates, are here for orders. General, what do you propose to do today if I may inquire? Still tired and rubbing the soot out of his eyes, he answers, I propose to fight. So does Sheridan, but Hampton knows this. While he's outnumbered 3-2, he has the intelligence advantage. Military intelligence. I don't know who is smarter. Sheridan will advance down to the crossroads. Perfect. Not liking his chances in open battle, Hampton plans his ambush, takes his division to the left, and Lee takes his right. Once Sheridan enters, they will spring their trap. Just as expected, Sheridan comes down the roads. General Butler starts the battle with grueling gunfire, holding the forward skirmishers of General Torbert at bay. Lee just needs to come in from the flanks and the division will be destroyed. The battle rages for hours, and Fitz-Lee is nowhere to be seen. Some speculate he was unwilling to follow orders from anyone other than Stuart. Without assistance, Hampton is forced back. General Wright moves to reinforce Butler, but under Federal fire they retreat. Things aren't going according to plan. What is Lee doing? General Custer, a man who never follows plans, is far away from the rest of the cavalry, riding with his Wolverines all alone. He engages with rebel officer Wickham, forcing the secessionists to run south. Custer, now deciding to link up with Sheridan, takes Nuns Creek Road. He arrives at the station, finding no Sheridan and also no rebels. Just the Confederate camp. What luck! He charges in, capturing 800 Confederates, 90 supply wagons, 1,500 horses, 6 artillery caissons, enough rations to hold a medieval banquet with. The treasure is sent to the rear. He now just waits for Sheridan. I mean, he alone beat Fitz-Lee. How hard is Hampton? Despite not planning for it, despite having thought himself defeated, Hampton now has Custer trapped. It might be further in the rear than wanted, but Custer is isolated. General Rosser, who has been defending the Confederate left flank, is sent against the young hussar. So is the rest of the division, and Lee is running up the rear. Custer might have blundered, but he is no fool. He takes his men from the exposed road and maneuvers into a more shielded area. Unfortunately, this puts him in range of Hampton's heavy guns. He is being now pressed from all sides. Lee rides into the rear and takes Custer's spoils, frees 600 prisoners, and takes Custer's personal wagon, but not his baggage. In the raid, the daring Eliza, the colored cook of Custer, bullied by the men who affectionately call her the Queen of Sheba, reference to the biblical monarch, escapes on foot from Lee's mounted riders, carrying Custer's luggage with her. I love this story. Eliza arrives in Custer's camp, but it's a desperate situation. Hampton is close to overwhelming the right flank. He is cut off from Sheridan and can't even get a message through. It's only a matter of time until he is destroyed. Looking defeat in the face, Custer takes the colors from the dead flag barrier, rips them up, and stuffs them in his coat. Hampton won't get the honor. It's Custer's last stand. The Lakota are running roughshod around him, picking his rough riders off one by one. Sorry, wrong battle. Captain Dana finally rides at Custer's side. Having tried to reach him under orders from Sheridan, help has arrived. Union cavalry rides in, willing to strike both Hampton and Lee. Rebels fall back, running in opposite directions. Custer takes his battered brigade into the safety of Sheridan's camp. When asked if he lost the colors, Custer takes them from his bosom. Not by a damned sight. During the night, Lee rides to Hampton, and Sheridan decides to return to Cold Harbor. He has distracted the enemy cavalry, and Hunter has lost his mind. He has done all he can. Morning the 12th. Fire burns down the station at Trevelyan. Rail cars thrown off their tracks. The typical aftermath of a raid. Half-hearted and half-assed. Rebels are north at Gordonsville, protecting the entrance to the valley. Sheridan doesn't want to enter the canyon, but he despises the idea of the Confederates on his rear. I could have phrased that better. Hampton, hoping to establish prominence, gives Butler his division so he can lead the full Confederate force, takes an L formation, and waits for the Union to assault. They do many times, each bloody repulse with canister and carbine. Nightfall ends the battle. Sheridan begins to ride back to Grant. Sheridan lost 102 killed, 470 wounded, and 435 missing, for 1,007 total. Hampton, probably around 830, it's unclear. Who won? Sheridan did succeed in diverting attention and burning down the station, but Hampton did keep him from the valley, held the field, and delivered more casualties. But Sheridan wanted to enter the valley, so both sides claimed victory. But historian Wittenberg, another gray fox, concludes Sheridan failed. He didn't do enough damage. The rail lines he was supposed to knock out of action are transporting the 2nd Corps under Lieutenant General Jubal-Early as we speak, and Hunter will have to deal with those veterans. June 11th, Virginia. The summer heat is cruel. The marching column of General Hunter is thirsty and exhausted. Luckily, General Dufay and his cavalry have arrived, looking for the mass of men to be used for something. June 12th, the Virginia Military Institute. The buildings are alight. Revenge for the cadets' participation at New Market. Hunter has condemned the school. Now, I find this story funny because after the war, the U.S. government will pay for the rebuilding of the institute, and one of the men who pressed most for the payments is the Chief of Staff of General Hunter. And Hunter's under orders to burn the valley, meaning this destruction is government-sanctioned, so the way to rebuilding is an apology by the federal government for, I guess, losing its temper? June 17th, Lynchburg. The citizens can hear the rattle-tattle of gunfire from outside their town. 4 miles away, the rattle-tattle is deafening. The forward cavalry of both sides are dueling fiercely. Union rioters have seen early success, but when the artillery arrives, boldness of the enemy was severely punished. Elsewhere, the Union is halted by lack of ammunition, but at the end of the day, Hunter is satisfied, until prostitutes show up. General Jubal-Early is in Lynchburg. His men are veterans, and Hunter's aren't. But they are about equal in number. But the Bluebellies don't need to know that. Empty trains run back and forth, whistle blowing, the people cheering, bands playing, and to cement the illusion of more reinforcements, he lets the ladies of the night go to the Union camp, where the report of a force double what Early has. Hunter hears this rumor from reports, or directly. I did check, he is married. How well does Early's ruse pay off? That remains to be seen, but I can say the brothels made a profit. Moving backwards for narrative convenience, Petersburg, Virginia. The aftermath of the failed assault on the 9th has seen a civil war in Union command. Butler, infuriated with Gilmore, has Grant remove him. Gilmore is sent to the capital, where he will perform admirably. In temporary command of the 10th Corps is Brigadier General Alfred Terry. It's a mess. Trying to make sense of this mess is General Robert.E.Lee, still at Cold Harbor. He has been bombarded with reports and demands to do something. Sheridan is riding westward, and the Army of West Virginia is coming from the valley. Is Grant preparing a push from there? But here he is, at the gates of Richmond. But he hasn't assaulted since the 3rd. This is not like him. One thing for Lee is sure. Grant will remain north of the James River. Grant has decided to take his 100,000 men from a 10-mile front, move them south through 50 miles of swamp, and then cross the half-mile-long tidal river to ford the James. I see why Lee thought Ulysses wouldn't do this. For days, his men marched with barely any sleep as his engineers worked themselves to the bone constructing roads, bridges, clearings, everything to ensure the march's success. These men, for all their trouble, will miss the battle I'm about to talk about. That would be the Second Battle of Petersburg, fought between the 18th Corps, sent by Butler to Grant, now returned, and General Henry A. Wise, with his old men and young boys. Lee is still at Cold Harbor, and despite Beauregard's letters, he doesn't believe Grant is moving south of the James. PGT is rushing the rest of his force to General Wise, but they won't arrive till the evening of the 15th. The rebels number little more than 2,000. Wise's only support is half a cavalry brigade under Brigadier General Deering. Their only hope is that the Dimmock line of entrenchments are strong enough to compensate for their meager numbers. 1100 hours, the 18th Corps comes into sight of the rebels, and they spend the next 7 hours doing reconnaissance. The disastrous final charge at Cold Harbor has scared General Baldy Smith into being anally retentive about intelligence. At 1800 hours, he advances in skirmish formation, attacking a weak point in the line, taking Battery 5 and infiltrating the rebel formation. The rebels seem to disintegrate before they advance, and General Hinks, with his colored troops, who actually has to face infantry, is also thriving. 3 guns fall into our hands. Rebel guns are turned on themselves. As parapets fall, the rebels do nothing. But what is the trick? Nothing. The rebels are scared and fall back. Petersburg is open, but it's nighttime, and Smith doesn't want a night march. This cost him his career. Night of the 15th, the 2nd Corps arrives. Rebels reconstruct their line, and the second chance to quickly take Petersburg has failed. Next day, battle starts again with General David Birney taking control since Hancock is sick, joining the assault, but General Robert Hoke has reinforced the rebels. As Union troops come in, so do Confederate troops. Lee is leaving Richmond. He still doesn't fully believe Grant is south of the James, but he is under orders. The 16th sees more success, but by nightfall, Petersburg is still held with 14,000 rebels inside. The 17th, more of the line falls. More rebels stream in. Union has squandered multiple times. Cautiousness that should have been used at Cold Harbor is costing thousands of lives at Petersburg. Cynthia, Kentucky, June 11th. Charge! General John Hunt Morgan and his raiders barreled down on a lone Ohio regiment. They pushed them into individual buildings, and within a few minutes, the town is on fire. The Federals are being burnt alive. 1 mile north, General Edward H. Hobinson and his Ohio infantry are moving to rescue their brothers in arms. They're marching when they're forced to stop. They need to cross the river. But Keller Bridge has been burned. The rebels anticipated them. Soon Hobinson is ambushed, and his forces forced back before they're turned and encircled. Morgan has won. He has 1,300 captives. Cynthiana is his. Or is it? A lone rider appears over the hills at the rebel camp. General Stephen Burbridge has arrived, and he outnumbers Morgan 2-1. Rebels try to run. They bring their prisoners with them, but the captured slow them down. Ohio men are paroled and left to their own devices. The Greycoats flee, but Burbridge is quicker. While Morgan escapes, his force doesn't. The entire 1,200-man force is destroyed. Burbridge has won. For the triumph, he is given the District of Kentucky. Attila now has real power. France, June 12th. Choo-choo! Wait, that's a train, isn't it? The CSS Alabama, exhausted from 22 months non-stop at sea, enters Brest Harbor. They resupply with coal and rest. 2 days later, chugga chugga chugga. That's also train crap. USS Kearsarge arrives in harbor ready to hunt their Confederate opponents, which happens to be just a few ships over. France, wishing to keep neutrality, prohibits battle in their port, obviously, and stops either ship from getting more crew. For the rest of the week, the two boats just stare at each other, Kearsarge waiting for the chance to strike. Did you know General Robert.E.Lee had a house? Keyword, had. It's in Arlington, Virginia, one of the northernmost counties in the state, which has been under federal command since the start of the conflict. The house has since been taken over due to unpaid taxes. Mary Lee, his wife, didn't pay her property tax in person, for some unknown reason. On the 15th, under order from Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, the estate is transformed into a military cemetery. Because Lee can go to hell. Those buried will be as close to the house to ensure no one can live in it. General Lee will never return to his state again. He won't even be buried there. Instead, he will be in an unfit casket. This is hilarious. Also on the 15th, everyone's favorite, politics. First, the pay to black soldiers is made equal to their white brothers. Good. There was no reason other than hate to pay them less. Which makes the next vote so sad. House of Representatives. 95 ayes, 66 nays. The motion fails. Wait, they got it a majority. Why did this bill fail? Because this is an amendment and it needs 2/3 majority. Abolition has failed, but is not dead. On the topic of things not dead, Clement Vallandigham. The Supreme Court in February 1864 overturned his arrest, allowing for his return. He does so using a heavy disguise, and then ditches subtlety and gives a speech, lying about his involvement in a subversive organization. What is this subversive organization? The Order of the Sons of Liberty, an epic name given to a terrible organization. That isn't just a moral judgment, but an objective one. They have little organization. They were once called the Knights of the Golden Circle. Again, a fantastic title, with a goal to colonize for slavery. Now they mostly bicker amongst themselves, infiltrated by scam artists and opportunists. 14th of June, Pine Mountain, Georgia. General Sherman's and Howard are in deep discussion when
I noticed a rebel battery on its crest, a group of enemies, evidently observing us with glasses.
spotters. Final order to Howard is to send some shells their way. Sherman is back on the saddle and far away before the battery opens up. 14th of June, Bates Division, Georgia. General Hardee is worried about Bates. His position bulges out. Soon General Johnston arrives on Hardee's request, and finally Polk joins them. Doesn't look good. One of them pulls out some glasses and looks 300 feet down. Yeah, the Union is in force. Johnston then looks and sees a battery opening fire. Scatter. Johnston ducks. Bates seeks cover. Hardee runs. Polk slowly walks away, not wishing to look scared. For his bravery, he receives a shell to the chest and is killed instantly. Sherman has returned to station when an officer offers him a decoded message.
Send an ambulance for General Polk's body.
Sherman believes he has decapitated a corps commander. The death of the bishop is confirmed the next day, as skirmishers reach Bates' former position, the rebels having retreated.
You damned Yankee sons of bitches have killed our old General Polk.
Polk as a commander is controversial, to put it mildly.
One of the worst shots fired for the Union cause during the entire course of the war.
General Loring takes over Polk's command, though the bishopship will remain empty till after the Civil War. The death of Polk and the withdrawal of Bates' division convinces Sherman of what he wants to believe. Johnston is routed. Trying for a Chattanooga, he orders a general assault, but just like Chattanooga, his subordinates use their initiative. General Thomas and his army doesn't charge, instead using their artillery to blast away the rebel opposition. General Hooker and the 20th Corps sees early success, but are bloody repulsed when they reach too far, though this does earn them the nickname Hooker's Iron Sides from their opponents. The Army of the Tennessee under McPherson sees the most advancement, taking Confederate rifle pits. The military division then begins a terrifying bombardment, much to the anger of General Sherman, who wants a charge, though his heavy guns should be appreciated, maiming General Polk, the nephew of the recently deceased. The rebels are forced to fall back. The 17th Union once again starts with a significant bombardment and skirmishes a bit. Sherman explodes with anger, but he can't do anything. His orders include stipulations like, don't if the enemy is too strong, allowing for his subordinates to lawyer their way out of following their commander. Also, you can't argue with results. The bombardments work. Even now, Johnston is trying to fall back because his current fortifications don't work. Where there have been charges, such as cavalry at Noonday Creek, they've been bloody, even though they have taken their objectives by now. Sherman prepares a message to Grant, expressing his frustration, but it is unfounded. Sickles time. Choo-choo! Wait, no, that's a train. Wait, it's supposed to be a train. New Orleans receives our great general. He goes to conduct a military review.
Most imposing display. The whole affair passed off in such a soldierly manner and showed such military ability that it drew forth a high encomium from General Sickles, who pronounced it the best military review he had the pleasure of making in the Southwestern Department.
He talks with Governor Michael Hahn, a reformer who wants Sickles to help him with Lincoln, and that night Sickles gets a note from the writer Thomas Thorpe. You see, Dan has arrived during the state's constitutional convention. They want him to speak. That's where the week ends, and there are so many ways I could conclude this report. I could talk about the battles in Virginia, and how this demonstrates the friction between Western commanders like Grant and Sheridan from the Eastern commanders. Or I could dive into how the rest of the world is dealing with our Civil War, as showcased by the events in France. But those two are ongoing, and this is the end of Polk. Leonidas Polk is a man of names, his first name shared with the legendary Spartan king who led the 300 to their last stand. His last name marking him as a member of the illustrious Polk family. He was a second cousin of President Polk. His nickname was the Fighting Bishop, and he was constantly split between the worlds of God and guns. You can see this in his education. He started at a university in North Carolina before attending West Point. There, he converted to Episcopalianism. Afterwards, he went to a seminary. In 1841, he became the Right Reverend Leonidas Polk, Bishop of Louisiana. But war never left his mind.
When asked in Richmond if he was putting off the gown of an Episcopal bishop to take up the sword of a Confederate general, to which he replied, "No, sir, I am buckling the sword over the gown."
And that's what killed him. Sure, there were thousands of little decisions afterwards that put him in the way of that fatal shield, but deciding to become a Confederate commander is the start of his final journey. I won't say that was a punishment by the Lord. I'd find that sacrilegious. I'm not Episcopalian. What I can say is, he who lives by the sword dies by it, no matter how holy the gown. Hi, it's the entire Civil War week by week team here. I'd like to just thank everyone for the support as I'm getting back used to this new set. It has been a long war so far, and we still have quite a bit ahead of us. But I really do hope to see you as we continue our path towards the end of the bloodiest conflict in our nation's history.